Hello, welcome. Hopefully everyone can see me and hear me at the start of the stream. This is, of course, live, so anytime I change these screens, you're gonna have to wait while I check my audio and everything to make sure we're not getting 30 minutes into this without capturing any of my audio. So it looks like everything is good and I'm talking, which is awesome. Thank you guys so much for being here. We're gonna hopefully have some of these live streams, more of them, when we have news and announcements and can show you behind the scenes stuff this way. And you can get it before anyone else. So that video we just showed is the first time we've posted it anywhere. So congrats for being the first to catch it. We're gonna be talking a little bit more about Taurok. I think I'm pronouncing it right. I've seen it written a whole lot. We're going to be talking about that new Minotaur enemy type in the stream, as well as a whole bunch of other stuff here. So I'm going to be joined with our game director and our art director. We're going to hop over with them in a little bit. But so in general, we're going to take a look at behind the scenes stuff of Desert Rain from these new enemies, some new environment stuff. We've mentioned a lot about the character creator and teasing this stream. So we have a whole lot for you guys to see. Without further ado, I'm going to undeafen our directors and hopefully nothing will break or explode.
Hey, I'm Tony. I'm the game director.
Hey, I'm Dwight, the art director.
Thank you for joining me on this behind-the-scenes look at Desert Rain. They're here, and we also have like a whole slide deck to walk you guys through. So we're going to open that up, and we're going to just talk about these assets for you, and you'll have any questions while we're here. Can you hear us? Someone in chat says. I've been yelling at the screen. I don't have an audio input for chat, I'm very sorry to say, but it's good to, if you're making jokes about me hearing you, that means that you can hear me, which is what I love to hear from chat. So we can, well, before we even get into the presentation, is there anything you wanted to say about the teaser that we just shared?
Dwight, you want to take that one? Anything?
Oh yeah, I can take that one. That teaser, first off, is pretty exciting for me because I much rather work on the desert, just with the whole Mediterranean theme with ancient Greeks and whatnot. So it was it's a personal favorite. So it was really fun to explore that a little bit more. Do a second pass on the ancient desert in our game, and then introduce a redesigned temple and just lean a little bit more into Poseidon. So that was, yeah, it's just a personal favorite, man. So I'm just super excited and just glad to just share that teaser for everyone.
Yeah, I'm excited for a lot of stuff we have to show here.
Just what you had said, you're excited to work in this desert biome in relation to our like Greek setting maybe a bit more. Do you mean that in like comparison to like the dark forests and the Athena biome being maybe a little more challenging from like a Greek myth perspective?
Yeah, it's a little bit more challenging. The Dark Forest, there's a lot more things that are a bit on the more ambiguous side. So it's really hard to kind of like put a stake down on something and say, no, this is it. This is exactly how it should be according to Greek lore. You know, there's a bit of hand waviness that you have to do a little bit more with that. Where everything that you can look on Greek lore, and just with the ancient Greeks, the Spartans and whatnot, like it's always in this Mediterranean, low moisture, area. So going into like this lush forest was, just a little bit more difficult.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna try to keep us somewhat on time, but I also want to, when questions come in, just ask them just in case those people like have to leave in 15 minutes. So someone asked, where do you get all your information? Is historical school, or do you get museums? I know when we were in office together, I was seeing some like art books that you were using as reference, or maybe just inspiration, but thoughts on that?
Yeah, it was a combination of quite a few things. Yeah, the office, the books that you saw when you were kind of walking by my office was a lot of that was just history books on ancient Greece. A lot of it was just how they built buildings back then, from the different materials, the different time periods, Ionic, the Doric, and the Corinthian time period, and just all the differences that came with that. That was one out of like 4 books I had. That one was given to me by the previous art director, and the other was those were books that I got myself. So the combination of that and plus, what other companies have done when they were making their games within the same time period, just getting some references from that too, and what was their interpretation of it. It was a pretty big melting pot of just history, what the general expectation is for some of this stuff, different people's interpretation on the creative side, and just kind of making our own thing from that.
Nice. Thank you for.
Yeah, same.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just say the same is true with the lore and story side of that. Like, there's different authors, Homer and stuff, that have done different. So depending on kind of who you look into, the mythology changes a little. So taking as much reference from those as we can, and then, past games, movies, and we take our own liberties with where we want to pull some stuff as well. But we decided we're not going to be 100% authentic to the thing. We wanted to be a little more have some freedom, I guess, to make our own choices within the lore itself.
The person that asked this question said they're Greek and they like the game and can't wait to see it finished, and said you guys already did a great job. So thank you for that question. All right, so we're going to go ahead and
Thank you.
transition into our presentation, and we'll have a little bit more time to talk about the environment and stuff in here as well with references. So hopefully everyone can see. You guys can see this screen okay. I'm going to double check that everyone's audio is on before I can start switching through these slides. So we do have on the next slide here, this is our itinerary for today. So we have a lot to cover. Like I said earlier, we're going to talk about the character creator, a little bit more of the environment, armor, and gear, weapons, and enemies, of course. So we're going to end the stream talking about the Minotaur, which we saw at the very beginning. And anyone that's just coming in and missed out potentially on that teaser, we'll play it again at the end. And of course, you guys will be able to check it out on the website and articles after the fact. Someone said, movies is a coin flip. Some are good and some are just awful. I'm censoring. But yeah. It's a good thing that we cross-reference things. So it seems pretty.
Some are good, awful though.
Yeah.
Oh, like B-rate movies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
We can
Get
take
some of that Jason and the Argonauts in here.
We can take inspiration from the ways that films deviate from the accurate stuff in a good way, in a way that makes things better. Maybe that's another way we can reference things. Seems pretty historically accurate to me. I remember flying Spartans. Yeah, I've seen them in the history books myself. All right, so we're going to start off with character creator. I'm going to, please don't mind the mouse in the way. So we're going to hop right in here. I'm going to let, Dwight or Tony, you guys can just jump in. Tell me.
Yeah, this is the, Dwight will jump into that. This is the big feature request, right? Female player character creator. This is a big one the team's been undertaking for a while now. So Dwight will go through some of the art direction for this, but we wanted to take every asset that we have. We have a decent amount of armor in the game now. We've got more coming, and so we're doing a unique variant for the female models in this, and we'll get into the character creator side a little bit as well, but this one we're really excited to actually get out into the hands of the people here.
Yeah, like Tony said, I can take. Go ahead.
Oh, just I was gonna start asking questions because I have just questions about how the process of reworking so many of our armor sets for this new model, but Dwight can go ahead before I start poking at questions.
Yeah, and yeah, I want to allow you to, ask those questions. I'm sure people who are watching right now have questions too. So I'll do like a high level just overview on just like what's going on here, and just making the art for the female variant of the existing male armor. Uh, there's a few things that I guess I can touch on here with expectations, just setting it right off the bat on like, hey, we just don't want to do like a reskin of it. We do want to make changes to the armor where it makes sense to be on the female. You'll see that in, quite a few games. That's a decision that they'll make to, not really make too many differences between the male and the female, but it's just a decision that we made. What would be more comfortable for them? What changes will we make on the chest? What changes will we make on their skirts? For the female, do we see them wearing very big, broad, large cloaks, or do we see them wearing something a lot different? And ultimately, just what do we want to show for the female when it comes to movement, right? Like, I think it'll look a lot better if we did something different with the skirt. Maybe instead of having that huge cloak, maybe all of the females they just have a very long skirt for them specifically. So if that's something you want, you pick the female character. If you want the big traditional like Centurion phalanx cloaks, then you would have to go to the male for that. So yeah, there's a long list of things that we have to go through first, and set those expectations right off the bat before we even get into concept art. And then when we start getting into concepts, we can start clarifying on just what exactly do we want to do for the chest. Are we going for more of corset style? Are we going for more of just a broad plated approach for all of the chest armor? Are we doing something in the middle? How much cloth do we show? You can see just on the few things I'm listing off here, it can just get very layered and very complicated really quickly on what exactly do we want to do. That's going to look cool and it's going to make sense, and find a balance between the two. If we screw that up, when players look at it, they just won't like it. And that's important, right? So the image that you have on the screen right now is an example of that. You can see some of the decisions that we made. They have shorter skirts. Some parts of their armor, it's a little bit on the thinner side. We have a corset approach. We have more of the tank top approach that we have on the medium, and then the light armor, which is the scout and the soldier armor. There's a bit more cloth here, right? So those are all intentional decisions that we made, which we think is very fitting for the female. I think it just looks cool.
Thank you. While the comments still up, a potion. I'm just gonna read it as is. They said a potion where you could change the model instead of making a new character. Like if you change things, people can adapt. I think they're referring to just like the process of how you'll get into the character creator for existing saves. So for that comment, we will talk about that a little more in a couple slides from now. We have some examples of how you might go into the character creator. Is there anything you could say, just in case they hop off, they don't listen to anything else? What can you tell them about the experience getting into the character creator?
Yeah, they'll be able to hop in, hop out, change the character they bring in, and all their armor and stuff would still be there. We're still working out some of the back end on, that involves save data and how to touch certain aspects. And so with this update, we're trying not to break saves at all. So we want to make sure that we have like a really clean update for everybody with that side. So adding a character creator is a big undertaking for that, because this is literally the character you're playing with. But right now we have an option to be able to go out, change your character, and come back in.
Nice, thank you. For this, and you touched on this a little bit, is that there are just things that you have to adapt for the different model. Was there any unexpected challenges in like working with making these work for this new model? I mean, like maybe this is something that might come up in animation where I was thinking like if they have to do like they do their attacks like very differently, like a big mace attack, and just because of the body proportions or the way the animation is different, you'll have to like, hey, like this whole shoulder patch is like super in the way. Is there any like weird, unexpected stuff? And we're just coming up with the concept art so far.
Nothing so far, the concept modeling and then some of the tech side, which I won't go too much into the detail, but like basically prepping the model to be animated. Everything's been pretty smooth there. The cloak in the back that's hugging the skirt pretty tightly, that'll be something that may give us a little bit of trouble when we get that in. But beyond that, I like when we get into the animation side, I think yes, he will have to be adjusting. Our animator will have to adjust shoulder pads and stuff like that. But that's kind of, we're like right there at that process right now where we're about to transition into the full animation sets for these.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm gonna go on to the next slide, if that's cool with you. Okay, I'm getting a nod, I'm changing it. So here we have some concept art for character creator options for the new player model as well. So do you want to just tell us a little bit about these concepts?
Yeah, making a conscious decision on just the styling for the hair. Really wanted to focus on 4. And do we just make all of them long hair? Do we make all of them short? Because ideally what we want to think about is, there's a pros and cons for going with long hair. There's pros and cons for going with short hair. And also there's the option for the player to actually put on a helmet. And also thinking long term, if we were to introduce a different type of helmet into the game, that is more on the non-traditional Spartan side, how would that play with a female hairstyle that has bangs? Or they have hair that's coming down, across their cheekbones, their temple, all of that. What is that? What does that look like, right? So you just mentioned before, just like, what are some unexpected things that may have come up? I'd say that's one of them. That's one of them. When you start getting into hairstyles, I mean, we were just talking about this today. Start getting into hairstyles, you got to think about everything that comes with that. Long hair, is that going to collide with the back? And is she wearing a cloak right behind that? So there's 3 layers. There's hair, the cloak, the armor, then her body. Like, how's that all interacting with each other? Short hair, if we become a little bit divergent with the helmet designs, how much of it's going to poke out? Does it even look right? All of that, I'd say, is things that we have to think about with these hairstyles. So ultimately, I thought short hairstyles were cool. This female character is also Spartan, and for a hairstyle that would be fitting for a female warrior, I think short was the way to go. So even the ponytail, we've cut that short around her neck. So all of this was intentional. We think it's pretty fitting. And maybe in the future we can explore with something, a little bit more on the longer side. But for right now, we think this is the right move to make.
Thank you. Before we go on, I want to ask for one of our viewers. Some definitions are not 100% Greek, like Centurion. Will they be renamed? Latin is not Greek. I'm not sure if this just are naming conventions for the armor, or if it's related to localizing when we're going to go through the localizing process. I'm not really sure how those sort of naming things are going to work with localization, but maybe do you want to just mention how you go about sort of naming the armor sets you've had?
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, I can get into that. The terminology that I've used to describe the style guide, I guess the style for the game, is Greco-Roman. So I'm going to be pulling stuff from the Greeks, and we'll be pulling some stuff from the Roman side of it. So centurions, that's a sign of that. I'm pulling more on the Roman side. We're not using terms like, I mean, if we really want to be nitpicky, I'm not using terms like phalanx. That would be more of an appropriate term to use for some of the other armor styles that we have, but we don't use that. So really, there's a mix of a few of these things here. And to be honest, even the history for this Greco-Roman time period, there's a lot of stuff mixed up in there. So I'm not too worried about it. It was less about the localization side of it on just, it's just the naming conventions that we've had so far. We're fine with it. If we're going for something that was truly, deeply, historically accurate in every sense of you could possibly imagine with the ancient Greeks and the Roman time period, then yeah, there's a lot of things that we have to change. But that's just not the game we're making.
We have a lot of unique components to the game, like our own characters, like Lady Seraph as well. Things that sort of, things that we're adding and things that we're pulling from. So I think that makes sense to me. I want to go back to this concept art. When I was seeing this, I wasn't sure or what to expect on whether or not the new female player model is going to have similar amounts of options in the character creator as the male model, or if it was because it's sort of just being implemented, if it's going to be a little bit behind, or we're going to have to like wait to get customization for them. So I was like happy to see this. I don't know if you want to answer that question with the next slide, which has some more, I think it's the video we have.
As far as like male and female having the same kind of amount of features.
Yeah. If it's going to be sort of at the same place for both of them.
Yeah, they'll be similar. Obviously, the hairstyles and stuff may be a little different, but the quantity of them. And like right now, like Dwight was kind of saying, we're still testing some things as we're moving forward. So length of hair, volume of hair, we'll have at least 4 female hairstyles in when we launch and 4 male hairstyles in when we launch for this update. Possibility of maybe some more or not, but like as we move forward, every update we'll start trickling in more options and things like that. So when we're at 1.0, we should have a decent amount of hairstyles in there. But yeah, if you want to go to the next slide, I can kind of explain some of the actual character creator side.
Okay, I'm going to. So there shouldn't be any audio, so I'm just going to let it play at its normal speed, and you can talk over it if you like.
Okay. Yeah, so when I was going in and designing the character creator itself, there's a lot of like different ways you can build these, and some character creators will give you the option to pick like 5 different heads, and then you change a nose or something, or even a more basic level if you just change your skin tone, the face, and then you go into the game. So wanted you to be able to basically sculpt and shape the face you want, and then you can go all the way through the process of creating the face and then jump all the way back up to the beginning and change the shape of your head if you want to. If you don't like, the iconic, heart-shaped or a square-shaped face or head, you can change those options as you go. So this is, in Maya, this is our work in progress side of creating all these shapes. I'm just pulling sliders around so you can kind of see, here's the type of options that you'll have. We'll have some UI next that you'll see kind of how this will lay out and how, as a player, you'll interact with it. But really just giving you the power to go in and sculpt and shape based off of sliders and icons to pick, like what shape eyes do you want? And then you can kind of set the width of them. How far apart are they? How deep are they? Where do they sit up and down on the head? So we've broken up the whole head right now into categories. You'll have like a head option that changes these large shapes. You'll have eyes options, so you can change that, set them where you want to, space them how you want to. And they'll all be set up the same, where when you go into a category, you'll have a few icon options of this is an on or off. You can pick a heart-shaped face or a round face. You can pick the type of nose that you want. And then under that, you'll have the sliders to adjust. Like here, you can see I'm adjusting the nose tip up or down. There's a length to the nose. There's a scale to the nose. There's a width to the nose. So no matter which option you've picked and which nose you like, you still have the slider option to then adjust and change from there.
Nice. It's more control than I was expecting myself. Let me get back to my controller thing. So we have 2 minutes. Is there any like piece of this that you want to, do you remember what's in this second half here? Maybe we just let it play out.
You can scrub forward a little bit, really. It's really just going through the options of all the face things, and then you kind of see where it ends up from the beginning.
I can see.
So anywhere you just want to jump forward, it's fine. Yeah. And so really researching this stuff, just looking into like, what are the categories of lip shapes? You know, there's heart shapes, there's bow shapes, there's round shapes, and then from there there's the width and the height and the volume and thickness. So we have all those as well, and so across all the categories, that's what you should expect to see. And then this is just an example of, you've created everything you like. It's non-destructive in the sense of now you can go back to the very beginning. And if you don't like a round head, you can give yourself more that oval shape or square or diamond shaped face. And all of it kind of just continues to work. You don't lose anything along the way.
And I think we'll probably talk about those categories of things that can be adjusted here in a bit, but this is just for like the face, right? We're not gonna have like height sliders and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. Like when you get into body manipulation, there's a quality level and a team size that you need for that. Like we can take and scale certain joints and stuff, but like the armor then just gets blobby and weird. So to do it right, you'd have to hand adjust all the armor sets to work. So when it comes to a head, it's all sitting behind a helmet. So we have free reign to do whatever we want on a face, and the helmets will all still fit. But when you get into like, overweight versus skinny or, those type of things, that becomes a big challenge for the team. So we have to just avoid it, unfortunately.
And I don't know if this is like a touchy topic, but that we're not we were limiting the design elements to like this is what Greek people looked like, rather than like this is just like different features that people have, and we want to like be able to have players just make sort of what they want from that, rather than being forced to like I need to make someone that looks realistically Greek, right?
Yeah, this is more try and cover all ethnicities and people groups so that, they can kind of create themselves, create a celebrity, create someone who looks Greek, anything like that should work.
So this is, I think, sort of an example of the differences and faces you can make with those sliders.
Yeah, this is just adjustments on sliders.
So we also have some mock-ups of the UI. So this is UI art rather than the existing functional UI, but it's hopefully a mock-up of what it will look like. I don't know to like what degree I want to talk about this and let other people talk about it, but if you guys want to like maybe go into sort of what we were talking about earlier about how the character creator can launch and sort of what at least currently, I know we're still like testing these things of like when you go in to start your current game, will it bring up a character creator or from this page, like the design of it is showing that you can select multiple characters, and I believe, at least in the wireframes, it was showing you could select one and then select your world. So do you want to talk about sort of the flow of these menus?
Yeah, so when you first launch this update, you can pull up an old save. You'll get kicked right into the character creator to create a new character, and then you'll launch into your game and be in the location you're at, and everything should be seamless from there. The one thing with this update is we're doing an overhaul on our skills side as well. So we've been capped at 10, and we really weren't happy with where the skills were at as far as what they were doing for the player. So we're doing an overhaul on our skills so that we're going to uncap you to 20. And our plan right now is just we'll jump every 10 levels for every update we do. And I won't reveal the next one yet, but so we're just going to jump 10 levels every time. So we're uncapping to 20. So with this update, we're probably going to reset skills at 0 so that when you go in, your skills will be fresh because you're bringing in a new character into it, but you'll spawn in where you were with the armor you have, but you will be able to create your character right here at the beginning.
Nice. I think I was reading as well that that this made me think it's sort of like you make a character and then the character is very independent from the world, and then you would just pick whichever character you want and it'll throw you into a new world. And I'm not so sure if that's the case. It's like the characters still are connected to the save.
Well, yeah, so right now the step we're doing currently is your player and your skills come with you. So if me and Dwight are playing and I'm level 10, I take my character out and I join you, I'm bringing my 10 skill level with me to your save as well. Our next iteration will be we're going to look into pulling like your inventory and armor with you as well. So your character will feel a lot more like you're able to jump in and jump out of worlds that way. With this current pass, it'll just be your preset, like what you look like, and your skills will come with you in every world you jump into.
Okay. I can go to the next one. This will start looking into what you were talking about, how you can choose from multiple options, the presets that are in there for head shapes, and or just like, I guess the main preset category would be just characters in general, like a whole bunch of different.
Yeah.
Rather than like this is a preset for a bunch of noses. So
Right. Yeah.
Because from the wireframes of this, I believe there's the 9 categories. I don't know if you listed them out earlier. You know them 9 of them off the top of your head, of what the icons at the top would be for this. I have placeholder icons in.
Yeah, I probably can. So you are going to start with a preset. We know that there's certain players that just don't want to create a character. They just want to be able to jump in. So we'll have, we don't know the number yet, 15, let's say, preset options that you can just say, I like this one, go. Or they're starting points for you. So you pick one and then you go into the details and change that character however you want to. So the first page is preset, then it's head, eyes, nose, mouth, ears. Then we'll have kind of tattoo, skin tones, and makeup, and then hair, I believe would be the last one.
I kind of want to talk a little bit about just like the UI art myself, because it's on here. So we had wireframes for how the UI was going to look, which is effectively just like the boxes of buttons you're going to press. So hopefully you should see a lot of the current menus that are in game reflected in how it's going to look here. Of course, this could change quite a bit, but between these, they should match the rest of the game and follow the art direction to make it feel Greco-Roman. I think to add on to what we were talking about between the presets and the sliders, that this is what the slider options might look like. So if I'm correct, if I slide up and down these sliders, would it be showing what we saw in the model earlier over on the right side? Or would it be...
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Because I think...
Yeah, so like if this... Go ahead.
I was just like, well, working with the wireframes, like, because there's still like, through working on the UI art, it's still a work in progress myself of things that I'm still like curious about, and in terms of like, the slider needs to reflect these are like 10 options, and this is clicking between 10 options, or is this like a bar? This is an actual slider of you adjusting the model itself. So, so you were saying that this would be reflecting what we saw in that model earlier.
Yeah, so what this would look like is if those those icons that say skin texture, if those were like face shapes, so the heart-shaped face versus a round face versus a square face, which are just iconic kind of face shapes when you look into this stuff. So that would be kind of pick that, and then you drop down into sliders and you change the length of that face and the width of that face, and you can always go back up and change which one you've selected without breaking any of the sliders or anything you've done. And then as you jump through and have changed the lips and the eyes and the nose and everything you like, you can always go back to the head again and change that shape, and everything stays with you the whole time. So you can really jump between all of these tabs and just keep tweaking and nudging until you're happy with the whole character.
I'm going to take a minute to ask about a couple things that they were talking about in chat. There's been a couple people in chat discussing sort of the like accuracy of like Greek versus Roman and mixing things. So it came up in their question about making DLCs of the base game for Age of Mythology and connecting with other stuff. So I just to touch on that, I think we had ages ago mentioned if like after 1.0 that there could be potential for expanding into maybe a different references, but and then the last, which is you're welcome after I read the next question to further comment on that. But the next thing, important question for the devs: will you make it possible to click and teleport to the spot where you are in creative in the map view? I'm not sure. Maybe you can make your, and interpret that question how you want. I'm wondering if that means like when I've been in creative mode, like I don't want to just like still have to like I've got everything unlocked, but I still have to go to through certain steps to get farther into the game. Is there going to be an option later down the line of creative mode to be able to like bypass certain objectives, like just say like unlock all the portals, unlock all the temples, and let me just go wherever? Is there thoughts on something like that?
Yeah. We're still discussing some of the creative mode options, but things like that would definitely be a possibility. I don't want to give anything away, but the, teleport to a location and all that is something that definitely could be coming. Yeah.
Back to the character creator. One thing when I was looking at the wireframes of these menus was whether or not the first one that we saw. Let me see. I should have an easy way to bounce between these. Like this one has the names of the characters. So once you get through here at any point in time, you're able to just go into, I like this already, let's name it. And I think there was also on the wireframes like an option to just save the design of the character versus like, can I go in and name it? So what's the menu that comes after this and sort of wrapping up your character?
Yeah, when you're finalized, you are jumping into game. When you go back to that top menu route where you have named characters, from there you'll be able to duplicate one. If you just like that as like a visual that you like where you landed with that, you can duplicate it, then go in and edit that one and change it however you want to, and then jump into a game with that character as well.
When I was working on this one, I was curious because just the wireframes of them had a lot of like options to pick from, and whether or not like all of these will be already populated, or whether or not like is there going to be any like collectible aesthetics in the game by chance, in terms of like hey, I can't get this super cool haircut, or like maybe something like a scar that I like unlock in the Temple of Poseidon, like because I got the scar, like I don't know, the aesthetics of collecting new things that you can apply to your character is a really popular thing in games. So I was just wondering to like what degree any of this is held back from you until you unlock it, or if anything.
Currently, nothing, just because there's probably not going to be enough content yet in this first pass. This is kind of our 1.0. Let's get, or point 1, maybe even, of a character creator. Like I said, we're going to have 4 hairstyles right now, so we don't want to hold any of that kind of stuff back currently.
Yeah.
But there's definitely plans for the future to be able to do stuff like that.
Not so much. I mean, the character preview, the art pass on that, that'll be fleshed out a little bit more. So, he'll be standing on like a little diorama, a little set dress diorama. Just put like an extra level of like polish on this, rather than him kind of just like standing in the ether. So I'd expect that too. It's exactly what you said. Like the art's still being worked on for that. So. Definitely have a bit more polish by the time it goes out the door. So, yeah.
I think I was writing while working on this of like, do I need to make a background? Because I'm just sort of assuming that that the 3D modeler part is just like attached to it, and that's sort of out of my hands. But yeah, so that definitely right side of stuff will definitely change here. So we're going on to the environment a bit now as well. So you guys got a glimpse if you were here at the beginning. You hopefully caught some of the new temple in the desert as well as a new enemy. So we'll get another look at that now. So here we have a very atmospheric distant shot of the temple, as you'll more likely see it in the desert with the sort of weather effects going on. Do you want to start telling us about the concept behind this temple in the ancient desert?
Yeah. I mean, when we initially started talking about Poseidon's temple and like what we wanted to do in ancient desert, we wanted to start thinking more on the lore side of it. Just why is this temple here? Why in the desert, right? Like what's going on here? And then started thinking a little bit more about Poseidon and what was our interpretation of him, but also pulling some actual real lore based off of him right now. So I saw him having a temple with just water around it. He's got like a little oasis going on in the desert. And if you explore the ancient desert, you'll actually see traces of like water streams that are like they'll eventually lead you to the temple. And then if you start to piece things together, you can start to understand based on some of the landmarks, the POIs, some of the wreckages that are there. Things just don't start to add up, and the desert feels a little bit less like a desert, and it might have been something else in the past, and Poseidon might have been responsible for that. And this is why, if you go to his temple, it's paradise. He's got fresh water. He's got palm trees. He's got his own little temple with ornate engravings on the side of it. It's out of marble. He's got his own bespoke banners. Like he's having a good old time there. And at the moment you step away from that, it's despair. You're getting hit with heat. It's hot. There's nothing out there. There's things attacking you. There's no water anywhere. So just playing more into that role, or that lore, I should say, with Poseidon and what his temple should be. That really showed itself in the art, and you'll see it in some of the other slides where you can see a little bit more clearly.
Yeah, and this too, we're introducing our biome mitigation side too. So going into the ancient desert, you're going to be getting hit with heat, with hot. That's going to build up. You're going to have to basically fight that or mitigate against it. So each biome's going to have its own set of things you're conquering that are environmental based and enemies. And so this is one thing that plays into here is this is a very hot area, and the player's going to feel that.
I was going to, when I think we announced that this update was going to be called Desert Rain, and it was going to be around the Temple of Poseidon, there was a comment on Steam of like Poseidon in the desert. So I think like the way that the temple is integrated and the way that water is used and brought into the desert is really interesting. And I think definitely you feel the heat more running around the desert. Um, I think it's sort of like contrast with the temple, the idea of the temple anyway, quite well. So I also wanted to ask, I don't know when in these slides is the best time to ask of, since you've said there's going to be this like inclement weather, is there going to be is there going to be like still this persistent sandstorm in the desert, and is it also going to be during the raid as well, or does the atmosphere sort of change in the temple?
The atmosphere will change. The desert itself will have a sandstorm. The severity of that will change and be different based on kind of gameplay, things that are happening.
Yeah, that's something that I'm actively working on right now. On just we know that sandstorm is something that we want in the ancient desert, but the variance from what is like a level 1 sandstorm look like in severity, and then we also have like we have a heavy sandstorm. What does that look like? Um, how does that affect the foliage in this biome? Um, the sunlight, just time of day. What does that look like? The amount of shade that's being casted down in this biome as well. How much the sandstorm is just blocking light from the sun, right? Does that affect your visibility? So at one point of that sandstorm where it's more on the lighter side, you can actually see further out. But then as it picks up and you get a more severe one, it's difficult to see that temple. Like you have to get pretty close to see it. So the variance of like a light one to a heavy one is something that we're actively working on right now, and just finding the right sweet spot for each level. So that's been fun. That's been fun. You can definitely feel the difference, at least in its current state. You can definitely feel the difference from a light, from a heavy. Like you definitely can't see as far, and that adds a little bit of scare factor to it, especially when skeletons are kind of spawning in your face.
Mm-hmm.
So
I also there's a couple things that like we're sort of glossing over in relation to talking about the zone in general. Just assuming that if you're watching this, you're probably pretty up to date on sort of the news we've released with this. But just to add that this update will be adding the temple with a new zone, sort of the way that Temple of Athena brought you to this new area as well. So this will be sort of the entrance to a new raid zone, just the same, as well as overhauling the desert with new kinds of shrines, like we saw in the Athena update. Is there anything you guys can say about sort of the new shrines and the way that maybe they are similar or different from the shrines brought to the Dark Forest?
Yeah, so we're still tying all of that to the deities, obviously. And so this is the third biome the player will experience. So we have our Mediterranean, which is kind of our standard, that first island. And when you jump over to the main island, that's just our Mediterranean biome. And then we've already talked a little about the Dark Forest. So they'll head there, do Athena's raid, and then head here to this ancient desert to do Poseidon's raid. And this is basically your entrance right here to get into that. To get in there, it's going to be sealed, and you're going to have to do these side shrines to break the seals, because the Olympians have locked up this raid as well, and you don't know why. Poseidon is gone. You don't know where he went either. And so there'll be some story added into the game around all of this. And for these, we really wanted to tie them more into feeling a little more grounded into our game. So you're going to be doing quests with a little more lore for these shrines and a little less activity-based for them. So I'm pretty excited about how these ones are turning out.
Okay. We had a question that about heat. So higher gear makes it easier to chill under the sun without getting heat stroke, and in winter zones to not be frozen. So just like you were mentioning how to mitigate the effects of the weather, how does gear factor in?
Yeah, so everything we're trying to tie into is if the player likes the visual of this gear, let them wear it. So we have an inlay system in our game. So that kind of stuff will be mitigated through inlays. So you can wear any armor set you like and then go craft an inlay to, like a cooling essence or something and put that in your armor to come in here and help the mitigation of it. We're also tying the raid itself into that. So once you have beat Athena's raid, the Dark Forest will calm down a little bit with its mitigation or its debuff. Same with the Ancient Desert. Once you have defeated and beat this raid, this biome itself will be a little bit easier to just stay in. So it's really the challenge of getting through it. And then we don't want it to be this massive burden for the entire game if you don't need it to be. So the other side of that too is coming into here without doing Athena's raid. Athena's raid is going to give you a Gorgon's Veil, which is an inlay to help you see or navigate through the ancient desert. And if you come here before you have that, your map may be all screwed up, your compass may be messed up, so it's going to be very hard to navigate. And the heat stroke itself is going to be very challenging. So it's really encouraging players to go and finish the Dark Forest first, because that's, we have this storyline running through the whole game, and that's kind of how we want players to jump through these areas.
Nice. Thank you for answering that. So hopefully that helped him with his question. I don't know how much detail you want to mention at the minute of things like within the raid zone of. You're welcome to say I'm gonna not tell you about this, but there's in the Temple of Athena there were sort of these like 3 sections. They had slightly different, inspiration and concept behind them. I know a little bit about the concepts in this next zone. Is there anything you want to talk about there, or sort of just implying sort of what they can get excited about in that space?
I'm not answering any of those questions, Dwight.
I mean, it definitely looks cooler than the first one. I'll put the art director hat on, right? It definitely looks cooler. There's definitely water, a lot of water there for you to play with. There may be some more puzzles in there, just like the previous one. How about this? It is a lot more scenic going through this raid compared to the last one, because the last one is very like doom and gloom, right? You're going to Athena's lost sanctuary. The Gorgons went in there and kind of just ran through all of it, destroyed everything. They kind of just used it as their own. So it was unrecognizable by the time you got in there. I'd say for this one with Poseidon, that is not the case. Everything is very much still intact. There is more structure. There is more upkeep that seems to have been upheld throughout in its entire lifespan, right? Like it never degraded. Sure, you'll see some damage here and there, but compared to the last one, now that this has definitely been upkept, it's definitely more gaudy, more royal in nature. So those would be like, I guess, the visual differences that you can expect, or more of the experience that you can expect. As far as like design and the mechanics behind it, there's water. That's all I can say. I'll leave that to Tony. And if he wants to say anything about that, but
this is very much a sanctuary for his queen.
A palace, you would say? You'd say a palace?
Okay. That's that's the word I wanted to be shared. I like that word.
Yeah, it's the royal palace. It's the royal palace, man.
If we're okay, just to keep us moving on to the stuff, I've had a couple more questions, but I think I'll save them, make sure we have time to talk about everything. If we're good, I'm going to go to the next slide. I see you nodding. So here's something I don't personally know a whole lot about. I know it's a facility. I believe I've heard us talking about this in the past, but I haven't seen many updates about it. So please tell us about this weather facility.
Yeah, this is a little sneak peek storyline lore. Uh, so far, storyline wise, the players know that the Olympians are missing. Nyx is guiding the player through. Nyx is one of the primordial beings, possibly one of the second ever created or born. So she's helping you kind of guide through everything. So during this update and during the ancient biome, we're going to see some weather happening, some effects happening, and running through the raid and completing it, the player's going to be rewarded with this facility that controls the weather in the game. So then they have the ability to set weather presets and run this with fuel. And this is really setting the tone in the arc of starting from you wake up on a beach and you're collecting rocks to ending with these deity-like powers that'll all tie into the story as we continue developing it. But this is one of the first ones really that will be kind of a major deity power that the player has to play with, and you'll be able to control the weather through it.
I know we've had on our roadmap more player abilities, and I know at the time when we added that, I had some things sort of that we were expecting, and this was one of them. So I'm excited to see it be coming into the game. We have a question, a little off topic, but we can come back to it. Is there going to be any more decor?
Never. Yes. Adding to the build kit, adding decor, that is definitely on our list. On the last update, what we ended up doing was releasing the Athena's raid and then doing kind of a minor update where we added in decor and stuff. That might be possibly what we're going to do again. Is we're going to get this update all packaged up. We're going to be play testing, make sure it's as bug free as we can get it, release it, and then possibly shift over to that. But Dwight, you want to talk any more about buildables and decor?
Yeah, we've got a list going on. A couple of decor items, and then updates to some of the existing ones. One of them is going to be the large bed. I mean, if you're this, big tough sparring man, you need a nice place to sleep. It's just you need something. Right now, the beds, they look kind of hard and stiff, and there's only one type of it. There's only the large wooden bed. So that'll be an example of that one's going to get a refresh to something a little bit more up to speed. You'll get a stone variant as well, and then I think there's two styles with that as well as what I have scoped for. That's just one example of the list of decor items that I plan on adding for the update. So yeah, I'd expect more decor. It'll be a mix between interior and exterior pieces. Actually, I have my list up now. Yeah, it'll be a mix of interior and exterior pieces. So yeah, you can definitely expect that.
Great. Thank you. Hopefully, maybe we'll see a continuation of getting statues of the enemies and stuff as well to come with these.
Oh yeah.
Okay, nice. If there's nothing else to add about this facility, I think we'll go on to our armor and arsenal. So we've got a little bit here about some of the new gear and one new weapon we're going to talk about. So just like last update, we had a new armor set. This will be the one we're bringing with Desert Rain. Do you want to? My starter question for this was just like when you were going about getting a new armor set in, like what did you tell the concept artists? What was the pitch for give me something in this vein?
I always start off with just the most important bit of the armor set, which is what tier is it going to be? Is this a forged tier? Is this a unique tier, which is higher? right? Because that will determine, just how much extra things we're going to be putting on this and the theming that we're going to put behind it as well. So for this one, really approach it as, this is armor that you're going to get for the raid. So this is automatically the unique tear. And since it's inspired by the raid, and the raid being around Poseidon, what can we do to incorporate some visual design, like some actual design language into this armor set, that when you see it, you're thinking, oh, I can see traces of Poseidon here. I can see traces of his weapon. I can see traces of like sea creatures and things that you would associate to like deep water creatures, in general. So that pitch, all of those things is what I would include in a pitch. And then the tail end of that is just getting specific on where I actually want to see those details. So obviously, if you're looking at his helmet right now, it's more of, that's something clear across all the variants. I want more of Poseidon's trident, his signature trident on the helmet, because that to me is where you can have the most room to actually make the 3 prongs on there. Like putting it out in the armor, if you're wearing a cloak, the camera's behind you, you can't really like see it that clearly. With this one, you can kind of get away with that. So, that's the overall pitch. You really start there with context. What type of armor, what's it inspired by, and then here's some specific details I actually want to see on it, and where, and how much. That's really it.
Yeah, I hadn't noticed when I first saw this, the like scales on some of the options, things like that. It's like a cool sort of exploration of including Poseidon in. I'm gonna go into the next slide so we can sort of see how this concept ended up evolving. So like, I guess, do you want to tell me a bit about how, like, which of those sort of led you, what you liked about this version over the other ones?
Yeah, and this is a combination of what we had in those previous slides, the previous iterations, and then adding on top of it. So what I really liked was the 3-pronged approach on the helmet, but I feel like it needed to be longer, right? So like looking from all sides, from the back, from the front, I want to see those 3 prongs. So those were extended and pushed over into like more of the final phase of it. But that didn't feel like it was enough. So I thought putting that trident design on the pauldrons as well was also a nice touch. But instead of this being metal, this can be something that was laced into the leather, right? So you have a cool design on the leather, and that really is just another trace of like Poseidon's mark on your armor. And what I liked the most in those previous iterations was just adding a sea creature on more than just one piece of the armor set. So the chest was the core thing that I wanted, but having something more on the arms was also a nice touch. And then 2 different interpretations of it too. The one that's on the armor, the chest piece is more of an actual like 3D shape. It's literally pinned on there. And then when you look at the arms, it's more of just more of an embossment, right? I think that's a word, embossing detail on top of the surface of the metal. So it doesn't stand out as much. And I feel like it's a good contrast between the two, even with the material changes. So I was really happy with this concept. Everything else is more of secondary and tertiary details, the scales, the color, how much leather do you want, how much of the blue that you want. And this is more of just a culmination of all of those things into one. And I was pretty much happy with what we got here. Mm-hmm. Doesn't feel too much, but it also feels very special compared to the rest of the armor sets that we've got.
Nice. One of the questions I had was going to be about like tints and how that affects it, and it just occurred to me, I think this might be one of like aside from maybe like the leather, the early armor sets, is this going to be one of the first that it defaults to like a non-golden red, and you like would have to tint it to that, or is this sort of like we're going to make sure that there's a tint that looks like this, and this is like the Poseidon version, but there's also going to be like the standard gold and red?
Yeah, this would be like a tint that we release as a unique tint for the game as well. And then you can also see kind of that reinforced, here's a female variant. So we're taking, where where Dwight got them to end up with that male, and then we're applying those same features that we were talking about earlier into that female armor set. So as the concept artists are moving through these, they know the rule sets for what to do when they go to make that female variant for us.
And so does this imply like that the helmet for the girl would be like a band, or is it sort of like this is if you're not
It's
wearing
the
a helmet?
No, she'll get the same helmet. She doesn't get a special helmet.
Yeah.
Let me see. I think we've got another side of this. It's like a back detailing of it.
Yeah. Yeah, very straightforward. This is just the back. Yeah.
I was thinking how like I really like the skirt part of hers here, and then so like you guys were mentioning earlier about the guys who would have a cloak versus like the longer skirt. So I kind of like getting to see the cloak version of this as well.
Yeah.
Nice. Let me see. We'll check. Just wanted to make sure if I. Okay, we can go on to the weapon then. So just like last time, the raid will be bringing some special weapons that are associated with the deities that have shrines in this zone. So this is some concepts for one of those coming in. Do you want to tell us more about this one?
Yeah, I can briefly touch on this here. So this is Artemis's bow. This is one of the legendary weapons that we're introducing into the game. For this guy specifically, with it being the highest tier item you could possibly get in the game, being the legendary tier, we really want to step away from the traditional, or I guess more, I want to call it contemporary, but more of the basic style of like the forged tier weapons, the legendary gears. When it comes to drafting concepts and making the models and dealing with the perks and everything that comes with it, these are inspired by a deity. So automatically, these bows, when we're creating them, they need to have something that is easily identifiable to that deity itself. So for this one, it was the deer antlers. So incorporating the shape language of deer antlers into the bow, and then maybe using that at the very ends of the frame, where like kind of what we have in the concept right now, we thought it was a nice touch, and then mix in some metal parts in there for reinforcement, along with some emissive values. The bright, shiny stuff that you're seeing there. Some of the emissive values that we have there, just to add a little bit more polish to it as well. And I think we have a really cool looking bow. So yeah, inspiration for this was Artemis, deer antlers, which is very much brought up in every bit of lore that I've seen with Artemis. She's a huntress, so she's got a bow. This is where we left off with it. Really happy with how this came out. And I think the perks, people would be a little bit. I think they'll have some fun with this. Just based on the perks right now, it's very much a bow that would reward you using it in more of a closer range. Not sure how much I want to share on that right now. Tony, is up to you. I can go a little bit deeper on that.
I was going to talk briefly about kind of the tiers and how that works in our game as well, since this update is going to bring a revamp to them a bit. So the idea here is these legendary tier weapons are god tier weapons, but you're immortal. So not immortal, amortal. So using them is going to be a challenge for the player. This will tie into our skill system, so over time you'll do better with. But these will basically carry a burden with them. So the more you're using them, they're going to be a difficult thing to use in our game. They're going to eventually kind of drain some stamina, some health, so you'll have to kind of pull off to another weapon for a bit and then jump back to it. So we wanted them to feel like they're this top tier level. So there's going to be high levels of like these big DPS explosion events that are cool to use, but also there's that system to kind of manage a bit. Then you go into our unique weapons, which is one tier down from here, and they'll have a very specific, unique case to them. They'll have a perk that is useful in a certain scenario or in a certain biome, and then they'll have an inlay slot that you can kind of customize that with it. So if it already has something that involves poison damage, there's an inlay that you can slot in to maybe maximize that or help you with stamina or maybe glide or something to that effect. And then we have our entry level tier, which is forged, which has 2 inlay slots but no perks to them, so you can basically mix and match however you want to with the forged level gear. So as we're going through the game and we're unlocking new forged gear for you, and you're finding forged gear all the way through Zeus's raid and everything, those will still be useful for the customization side of players that really want to just toss in their own inlays and max out their crit damage or something. And then there's these one-off special legendary side gear that are going to have no customization to them, but just big effects and visuals to them, and kind of this burden management system you're dealing with early to mid game.
I was going to ask as well. So I think we had those 3 legendary ones and from Athena, and then we had things like the Fulgur and the Dire Song as well. That sort of corresponded with the different bosses. Are we looking at roughly the same amount of like unique and legendary coming with this next one? Is there?
Yep.
You're welcome, of course, to not answer this, but can you indicate sort of what kinds of weapons? We've got a bow. We had a bow last time, and a shield, and a spear. Or we. Will there be multiple bows this time, or are you gonna be like, this is the only one we're telling you about? You get this.
I love not answering questions. When you leave it as an option, that's the option I choose. I don't want to answer that question.
Okay.
Yeah, no, we're going to have a variety. All of the weapon sets we have in the game, we'll have legendary versions of them. We'll have unique levels of them. Like there's a unique shield coming and some other stuff, but I do want to leave some of it as a cool reveal, as they drop in the game.
So we're going to look at some more things that we can expect for Desert Rain. This is some concept for someone that might look fairly familiar, but substantially cooler already in the concept art phase. Do you want to tell me about sort of what we were doing here and who this specific priestess is?
Yeah, this is Nysarra, the Gorgon priestess. She is one of the bosses in the raid. So we do have we obviously have the Gorgons that you fight against in the last raid. You have Medusa's 3 sisters. And then we have more of a Gorgon priestess that is on a lower level that you can find that's out in the world. And, she's just giving you a hard time. Just a magic wielding, priestess that's, subservient under the Gorgons, right? Like, so they're actually getting their powers from those Gorgons, and they're wielding it even though they're not Gorgons themselves, right? So this one is a high priestess. So she is significantly more powerful than that priestess that you would find in the Dark Forest. And enough to the point where she can be her own boss. So with this, we're really just trying to tie in what is a nice blend between cloth and some armor plating. And do we give her a mask or do we not? And this will get deeper into, just design on do we want her to be quick on her feet? Do we want her to be, more of a brutish, warrior that's standing her ground and just throwing heavy attacks at you? That side of it didn't feel right. Definitely wanted somebody who was more quicker on her feet, also a magic wielder, and also just look cool and very much different from what we have so far in the game. So this is where we started off at. Play with some mass designs, play with some cloth on the armor, play with some armor plating, see what we get. And what I essentially ended up doing was just mixing and matching some of the best elements that I got from this lineup, and that'll take you to the next slide that you have lined up here.
Want to maybe point out some of the things that you like, the things that you combined, like the highlights of this?
Yeah. So the things that I liked the most was just the mask. I thought it was a nice touch to have just a very bespoke, elaborate looking, headdress for her. The long hair is something that I liked quite a bit. Can't put short hairs on everything. And there's something very feminine with just having that long hair. And with her being in this, the raid area, this royal area that we're talking about here, it just felt very fitting to just have somebody that, fits more of that high priestess look, fancy headdress, long hair. She has a little bit more refined armor on her, a little bit better clothing on her as well. And when we got to this phase, wasn't happy yet. I'm still feeling like she has a little bit too much armor on her for somebody who's supposed to be quick on her feet. And there's a bit of like fitment. There's a bit of polish that comes to the fitment of the stuff that she's wearing that I really wanted to like rein in a little more. And the next slide that we have is more of the final outcome of that.
I have some like questions just sort of about, I guess, the concept of the character. So I don't want to interrupt if you, in terms of talking about the art direction for the, like the model.
Oh, no, that's fine. Yep.
But so of course there was a bit of a storyline for the integration of the Gorgon sisters in the Temple of Athena. So I'm interested to hear sort of what's the integration of the Gorgon as a boss in this new raid zone? If you can answer that without answering any of the earlier questions about the raid zone mechanics and things like that.
Yeah. So the lore that I was pulling from for this was, if you look back at Medusa, she was a human. Depending on which kind of lore you're looking into, her and Poseidon had relations, we'll say. And then Athena basically cursed her into the Medusa that most people know in Greek mythology. So for Nysarra, my thinking here is like, she reminds Poseidon of Medusa before she was converted. So he has now brought her to be his queen. So she is still a human, and she is residing within the palace and guarding and watching over it still, even though Poseidon is missing. So she's been brought in on that level. And like Dwight was talking about with this priestess level character, these are humans that worship basically the Gorgons. And so they've been blessed with some abilities and powers based off of those three sisters. So she is just kind of ascended to this queen level and brought into the palace for that.
Thank you. And with that being the case, like we're expecting for these new bosses, sort of a similar like elevated fight experience with a lot of like special attacks for her. I think it would be too much like of a spoiler to ask if there's anything you can indicate. Well, like you already were talking about for being like, what kind of a fighter she is, so maybe that was an indication of what you can expect from the actual boss fight with her.
Yeah. She'll throw you off. I'll say that.
Yeah, for sure.
And then we have one more slide, which is I feel like the final iteration of this series for her. You have any like additional like comments about the texturing?
Yeah. So this made it, obviously, this is the 3D model you're seeing here. So after the concept gets approved, we move into modeling, goes through the full production pipeline on that, which includes texturing. And this is the final result that you're seeing here. With that comes, during the texture phase, a bit of polish, color grading, making some last minute decisions there. Do we still want to go with red? And then also, while we're working on this, we actually have all of the bosses lined up, and then we're trying to establish, some unity among all of them because they're all in the same palace. They're all under Poseidon. They all have, the same perks and benefits of being in that area. They're all one big family. Uh, some are like more than others, clearly with her, compared to some of the other bosses here. Um, so what does that look like? They're all should have the same color scheme, the same type of armor, which we're calling void armor in this game. That's a different thing. And then what is all that? What's the unifying design language between all three of them? So this is the end result where instead of going with red, it made sense to just go with a blue. And that's a blue for all of them, the Minotaur and the other boss that we'll reveal here shortly.
I think we are ready to go on to the next one. I'm going to. I'm seeing nodding. So here we have another enemy that's going to be coming with Desert Rain and the early concept art for it. So obviously, this very powerful golem, and I'm interested to hear sort of how you started this iteration process of elevating it to this. And adding this armor component to the golem.
Yeah, the golem got a bit of a glow up, right? The golem we still all love and know is still underneath that, but he's got a bit more training under his belt and he's got a little bit more protection. So the biggest difference you're going to see between this guy, obviously everything I'm saying now is what we talk about, during this concept phase. The biggest difference you're going to see from the base golem to this elite version of him is there's a level of battle prowess that you'll see between the two. It's definitely more on the elite version. He'll be a little bit more up in your face. He hurts a lot more. He's got, he's a bit more tankier, hence the armor we're putting on him. But he's also in a royal palace. So if we're going to put armor on him, it can't be this rinky-dink thing that's been piecemealed together like it's, Mad Max. It had the armor that he's wearing. It's got to look like there's a bit of craftsmanship applied to it, right? Like there's a lot more thought and custom features that are considered when you're making that armor just for him instead of him picking up like some generic thing and throwing it on top of him, right? So that is kind of where we started here on just applying the armor to him and what it looks like. Do we do something that's symmetrical? Do we do something that's asymmetrical? And how much armor do we want to give him? So that is what this slide is really trying to figure out here on the foundational level, on just everything I talked about so far. And once we figure out the amount of armor, where it's going to go, the symmetry of it, the sheer volume and size of everything, now we can go on to the next slide and put that all together and see what we got.
But is it a cauldron? Is that what it's called? My vocabulary is failing me.
Yeah. mine does too on a weekly basis. But yeah, so this is what we ended up landing on. Taking all those things into consideration on just how much armor you should, right? The long list I just gave you, and there's a few things that I really wanted to add in here. If you're going to give them an oversized pauldron, let's put let's put an animal on there, and let's just see how that looks. This is more of a fitment check as well. How clunky is the armor looking right now? Does it seem form-fitting? Does it seem like this was made specifically for him, right? Like the spacing on some of the armor plates around his legs, it's all feeling. And then also the thickness of it. This is going on a golem, and he's going to be smashing the ground and rolling around and running and jumping and doing all these things. Is a thin piece of armor going to work for this guy? Probably not. So this is just a long list of things that, we're really starting to get nitpicky on, and then we're going to move on to, the next slide where you'll start to see like the final outcome of, what's going on with this guy. What should he look like?
Nice. I don't know if maybe because the question occurred to me just than while you were talking about this in terms of like the armor feels like it was custom designed for him. This goes into sort of the same question I had for the priestess of like the role of the golem in the raid zone as you encounter him. Like, how does he feel and fit into the raid?
Yeah, so this is Nysarra's guardian, basically. So to even enter into her royal palace, these guys are protecting out there. So they're the guardians of her in the palace.
Um, I know a lot of the other golems, they have like a resource that they drop. Does this one have, what's this guy's like resource? Is that reflected in any of this, or he just drops the
Seahorses.
coolest? I just like you break him and like water comes out and it's just like fish flop on the floor.
Exactly, yeah. No, he probably will have something special to him, but right now we're focused more on the combat side and this feeling like a good fight. This is an elite fight, so with all the other bosses we had in other games, they will give you a unique drop as well. So, you know, a piece of armor or a weapon or something unique to him. So that is something definitely that will be in with him. As far as a loot side, we're trying to really balance this concept of like forcing the player back into the raid because that's the only place to get this one item. So we're trying to avoid that as much as possible in certain aspects. So with him, we're not going to give him like a unique thing that you have to then go back in and grind to get in that aspect.
But yeah, he's gonna drop a lot cooler stuff in clay, so that's great.
Yes. Yes.
Someone asked, "Is the stream? I hope the stream will be recorded." It's 2 a.m. here. It is being recorded. I'll also be like relaying some of the key things that we discussed here into an article as well for those that are not inclined to watch 2 hours of content. We're really grateful for everyone that listens and checks this out, though. Thank you. We're gonna go on to the next iteration of this art here for the golem. You can definitely see some of the ways that evolved since the last one. Do you want to sort of expand on? See, there's a lot of different like detailing that was considered for the back of this.
Yeah. So this is more of a refinement pass here on just again the fitment check on the armor that he's wearing. The previous concepts, it was kind of just sticking out way too much. We wanted something a bit more form fitting. So the gloves that he's wearing right now, with all of the cloth, the straps, and everything, we just pulled that closer to the body. Also, his pauldron, before we had a line there that it was more of a exotic looking line with a lot of line work to simulate some of the hair that you would find on a line. Unfortunately, the line does not represent Poseidon. So we went with, what are the three options? I believe it's the bull,
Dolphin.
the seahorse, no, the dolphin, and then a horse.
Yeah.
Right. So the Minotaur has, not the Minotaur, the bull has some issues. I mean, if we put some big honking horns on an already oversized pauldron, that's an issue. So that was kind of out of the question. The dolphin, I'm not sure a lot of players are going to look at a big intimidated golem and see this giant dolphin on his pauldron and go, oh yeah, this guy's real like intimidating. Oh yeah, man, I'm just so.
But it tied into his loot of dropping fish, so like it would have worked.
Hey man, don't even chat. Don't listen to him. So, the horse head what seemed like the sensible approach to take here. Just it fits well with the pauldron. We don't have to worry about horns kind of sticking out, kind of disrupting the whole thing. And it fit really nicely with like the ornate putting on there. And then also his armor overall just got bulked out quite a bit. It got a detail pass on there. And then at this point, we're trying to figure out what does the back look like? How complicated do we want to get here? And then you'll see in some of these designs, it can get more on the sci-fi end, which we don't want. And then some cases it may get more towards the Aztec style as well. And you definitely don't want that as well. So it's hard. So you got to pick something that kind of makes sense. So the last slide after that would be kind of like the final outcome. Unless this is the last one right here.
Yes.
Is there another one after this?
This is
the last one.
looks-
Yeah. So this is the last one here where the armor is a bit bulked out. bit more bulked out. The design we went on the back wasn't too much. We still incorporated some of the typical center designs that you would find. And a lot of like some of the Greek art you can find today. Um, and just a detail pass on the back. You know, how many plates we're going to put on this guy's back, and like how is it connected to the front piece of his armor? How are those held together? And is there anything else that we want to just make more sharp and detailed? And we ended up with this. And obviously, just like Nysarra, we gave him a color grading pass. So he now has blue cloth and a blue gemstone on him, and he's going to match with everybody else.
I like questioned earlier about like what resources like he drops because of that like really pretty stone that he's got on there, and I'm like, I don't know, but like if I kill him, I want the stone. I don't know how you're gonna give it to me. Maybe I'm making this up. This is not like a spoiler or anything, but I hope like it's an inlay or maybe you can get. But very cool.
Just adding scope to our game. Every comment, aren't you?
Yeah. I also like just a tangent a bit is what we were doing, like we were having our review meeting and we were in the raid zone and Dwight was just like panning around reviewing stuff and there was just a flaming fish. And I think about this all the time and how I hope that that I will encounter it in the real game. And it's just like a thing, like it's like I have like a headcanon that Poseidon just has like this flaming fish. This actually did happen, but none of this is probably going to end up in the game.
It did.
It's like a dream.
The wrong placeholder VFX with the wrong mesh, and you end up with a flaming fish on the ground flopping, and I had no idea where that came from.
I hope that it will happen to me sometime. All right. Okay, we have one more enemy to discuss, and only 2 more slides. We saw this guy at the very beginning of the stream, and I'll play again the teaser that revealed him to us at the end of the stream, so you'll catch it again. But of course, we have this new enemy, Minotaur, coming to the new raid zone. You don't have like all the different concepts included here for this guy. Do you want to talk about his design?
Yeah. For this guy, I mean, I think he took the longest actually. Yeah, he definitely took the longest here because it doesn't show in the concept, but he's got twin axes. So he's actually got 2. They're bespoke axes, specifically made for him. And there's a lot of difficulty here because he is not on the humanoid side when it comes to character design. So he's got this bipedal action going on here, and like, what does that look like when you put armor on a guy like this? And he's very top heavy, and he's got a horn. He's supposed to be proficient in, wielding an axe. And is he quick on his feet? Is he a brute? Is he slow? Like, what's going on here? And those details are important when you're making this concept, right? It doesn't make sense to the player if he's wearing a bunch of like layered, really, really bulky, heavy armor, but he's like literally just bouncing off the walls, right? So I thought what we had here was a nice balance of he's got armor, but it's not so much to the point where man, it just feels out of place. So the biggest thing I really wanted to keep here was the horns, making sure that looks good, giving him something for his head, but I don't want to cover the entire head like he's wearing like full plated armor, like for a heavy armor set. I didn't want that, so I think the front was just fine. And then for everything else, the armor that he has on his legs, stuff that he has for his gloves, just keeping that as a one piece, no additional straps, nothing like that. This guy's definitely a berserker, so we felt like just the amount of stuff that we have going on for him was just enough. It was just fine. Anything beyond this point, I think it would be a little bit too much. So I was really happy with how this guy came out. Um, and I think people really like the animations on this guy and the audio behind him as well. Like and more so the environment that he's going to be in. Um, yeah, I'd be careful for this guy.
We have another slide of the back and a little more of the weapons here. I guess so.
Yeah,
There's three different concepts for the weapons on the right.
yeah.
Which one is it? The
I believe it's option 2 that she got there.
yeah.
Yep, right in the middle. Um, yeah, I thought it was nice. That was nice. Yeah, you can see that.
You had mentioned I think I guess when we were just dealing with the teaser of like the Minotaur, you said this might be one of our most complete enemies that we have in the game, and I was like curious as to what that meant to you in terms of like maybe it's like just like the level of um, like polish or work that went into like giving him these custom animations, or really just like making sure everything like fits together with how he was designed.
Yeah, yeah, it was a little bit of everything. The amount of detail added to him, um, the amount of abilities that he's getting, the amount of attacks, um, just a lot of stuff going on with him where, even though it's still a work in progress, it still feels, oh my God, it still feels so complete on just how he's looking like right now, like how he interacting with the environment, how he walks, um, the detailing on his armor, right? Like no other enemy in the game has this level of detail on his armor. The way he moves with the armor on, the way all pieces work with each other as he moves and swings his arms, it just feels very, very good. And that's what I meant by like it just feels like the most complete character we have in the game right now. Just a lot of work that we're putting into him right now, and I think it's paying off. And I think players would appreciate it when they go up against him,
Or hate it
or
when they go
absolutely
against
hate
him.
it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
In a good way.
I hope not.
In a good way, they're gonna hate this guy.
Um,
Yeah.
a while ago, I mean, I guess at our game's early access launch, we were like aware that we wanted to have a lot more Greek myth inspired enemies in the game, and the Minotaur felt like it was an inevitable one that we wanted to add. And at the time, we were considering like how do we get more in quickly, and there was like this thought of using this tip Minotaur that we had seen and looked at. And I just yeah, so like it's cool to see like that we've had one that we actually got to make and get in the game, that it's something that we're really happy with, and I think sort of represents like what we want for the game of like being able to really make something that we're proud of rather than just like grabbing something and it's like a little jank and whatever. So yeah, I hope everyone is really excited to see this enemy added.
Yeah, that's one of the tough balances. It's that kind of patience, I guess. Like a lot of players are asking for this type of stuff, and yes, we could go to the marketplace and grab things and throw it in, but like that's just not how we're making this game. So uh, to Dwight's point, this is kind of a key milestone of a character for us that like it feels like a full complete package. And we're really excited for this. This is also kind of the final boss of this area. This is Poseidon's champion. And when Poseidon went missing, he kind of rebelled, and Nysarra had to basically lock him up. And so this kind of last arena and fight is all, this whole raid's building to this last kind of climax here.
And it seemed, I guess, with the bull being, a symbol of Poseidon, this seemed like a natural fit to bring the Minotaur into this update.
Yeah, and again, depending on the lore, he ties in very nicely with Poseidon, the Minotaur in general.
Okay, well, that was our last slide. We'll have to close out here in a few minutes. I think I might have had a couple questions to go back to. Is there anything that, you felt like we didn't get to touch on that you wanted to discuss?
You cut out if you asked us something.
Oh, no. Anytime I cut out, you just have to say something
Sorry.
like super unhelpful, like I don't have any good example. My improv is not that good. I was just asking if, like, okay, we're closing out. Like, is there anything that you know, like you wish we had got to touch on? I feel like we were pretty thorough, but I can go back to a couple of questions, I think.
No, I think.
Yeah.
I think we're good.
Yeah.
Okay, one of the questions I'd skipped over, which is that, like, I think when with Temple of Athena we released that update, that we sort of like underplayed, in my opinion, that we were adding this significant raid zone, um, and a lot of people were like, but we wanted the map expanded, you know, and we're, you know, again having an update come out where we're not touching on that map space. But I just wanted to like point out of this adding a different zone that we get to go to. So while it's not adding that specific spot that's marked on the map, if you just want to talk about sort of like the game space, the amount of space that this new zone is adding. You're like, well, I don't have the square footage. I don't know what you want from me.
Dwight probably has the square footage in his head, actually.
I actually do. And we're talking about just the raid zone in itself.
Yeah.
It's from the entrance to the last area.
Yeah, when we were doing the art review, he was like
Oh,
measuring
dude, it's-
pillars and stuff. I was like, what's going on?
Yeah, yeah, I'm doing the math in my head. Yeah, because it's important. Like I don't, you don't want, small and insignificant, and scale is really what we're going for the raid, and all the way starting from Poseidon's temple, we wanted to establish the scale. We're in the dark forest. It was a little bit more on the smaller side. I would say, you go to Athena's temple, and it's big, but it's not giant. Poseidon's temple, I wanted to take it up a notch and make that giant, where you have to literally crank that camera up to actually see the top, and still you can't see everything that's above it. That raid, I want to say, is a little bit over half the size of the ancient desert. Meters wise, yeah, it's very big. I'd say 75% around there, between 50 and 75% of the size of the ancient desert, and that's just dedicated to Poseidon's specific area with all these new enemies coming in, the raid zone, all the loot that comes there, the new area, new architecture, new places for you to explore, new mini fights, puzzles, all that stuff. So it's pretty big. So although that we're not extending, the currently locked area on the map, as we refine all of these biomes until we get there, we're still adding pretty large spaces for you to explore.
No, thank you for, answering that and considering how the exact square footage of the zone. We have time for just one more question. They asked, I'm not sure if it's been talked about, but has there been any discussion on early to mid-game progression? Will anything in the starting areas change in the future? So I like it because this throws back to the question that I was dropping out on, which was things about, like for me, I feel like leaving the Temple of Athena, I'm so strong, right? Like that I was like, you can power through that raid again pretty quickly when you have at least some really good gear. So I was thinking about are you gonna just blow through this next zone because you have these really crazy powerful weapons? That was my thought, but just for theirs was specifically are these early mid game things changing? Anything in that realm of adjustments being made before this raid?
The raid itself will kind of balance your gear. If you've gone all the way to end level gear and you're going back to do Poseidons, we're going to basically bring you kind of down to a level that's acceptable so you're not just powering through them. And the raids themselves, we want them to be an experience that you feel every time you go into them and do them. So that is one thing there. As far as early game or mid game progression, I don't know if the question really is like, are we going to refine some of the areas we've already touched and done, like when we get to our 1.0 release? I would say definitely those earlier ones. This is actually partially some of the reason we're leaving that last area locked is the things that we're learning along the way that the game's being shaped by like our vision and the player's vision of, oh, this is really cool. What if you did this? We have the opportunity then to, when we go to unlock that, apply everything that we've learned along the way to that biome itself. So that's one of the small reasons that that area is still locked and will be locked until we get to that storyline beat and progression level to jump into that biome, and we'll reveal what that is and everything when we get there. So I don't know if that specifically answered the question or not with, yes, we will be touching early game stuff when we get to week 1 because of all the things that we've learned, along the way, and we'll basically refine the game and release it as a V1 package at that point.
Yeah, hopefully that answered your question. I wasn't trying to hijack it as well. I was like, maybe I hijacked it a little bit to ask about the weapons. But so I think at least for this update, it's not, you don't need to expect any like drastic changes to Veil Point. Like the last update brought a lot of improvements to that area. But I don't think, he would expect that's for this update, but you might see before 1.0 a little revision to some of that early stuff again. Okay, yep. I think that's all I have. I'm going to let you guys go. So I'm going to get off of the presentation. You guys just want to say some closing words? Tony?
Yeah, really appreciate everyone who's playing, giving us feedback, and helping us shape the game. We're super excited about what's coming.
Dwight, your turn.
For me, I can't wait for everybody to just kind of get their hands on it. Because like I said, this is a personal favorite, Poseidon's my favorite. As I mentioned in our previous videos, you asked me who's the guy, who's favorite deity, and I said Poseidon. So it's all lining up now. Now I'm in the ancient desert with some Poseidon. It truly is a personal favorite. So, I think people will be really happy with how everything is turning out and what they get to experience for this update. So, yeah, excited.
Thank you so much to the both of you for coming in and bringing stuff to show the players and answering our questions. So I'm going to let you go and close this stuff out. So thank you so much.